about it. Let's talk about it.
All right, guys. So we are live and ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, how long to get?
Yes.
You seeing it in there yet?
No, I don't see it streaming yet.
I'm not seeing it streaming yet.
Oh, it's connected right now. Sorry, 1 second.
Are we live? Are we live? We streaming? We streaming?
No, we just need a couple more minutes to
Okay, there we
connect
go.
the stream and test the sound.
See it?
I think we is ready. We is ready. We is ready.
All right, guys, we're gonna be going live here a little bit and making sure that you guys are getting all hooked up and all that good stuff. And let me do some sharing on this part too. Share groups. All the groups on board.
Hey, and here we go. Here we go. I think we are live. I think we are streaming on another lovely, beautiful Wednesday. Let's talk about it. Let's
One
talk
second, we're just
about it.
connected.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. As you know, there's always just so many different things that we do need to talk about, right? Man, it's just never ending. I think that we can kind of do these shows every day and not run out of stuff to talk about. But you know what? It's all good either way. It's all to the good. But before we get started, my name is Antoine Beeks, and to my left, this is Joseph Banks. We are here in the studio as Joseph Banks is running for Hennepin County Sheriff. This is a grassroots campaign for him. However, we know, and we said it before, that even when he gets into office, he cannot do this alone. He must have your participation. He must have your involvement. He must hear your voice. Your voice matters. Your vote will count, and we will definitely get into more about voting, early voting and when voting kind of starts within your local precincts and things of that nature, and he will share a lot more information about that as well. Joe, it's another fabulous sunny Wednesday outside.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I know that before we get started, there's some house rules, things that we kind of have to go over. So go ahead and take care of those things.
All right, guys. As usual, we're here from 45 every Wednesday to talk about important information in the community. Got a late start today, but we're glad you guys are still jumping in, chiming in to join us. Make sure that you hit us on the inbox, light us up with questions, talk about issues that are happening in your community around you. Remember, there's no bad question. Ask that question, and we'll do our best within reason to try and get you the information out. A lot happened in the community today, so we got a lot to get out to you. We ask that everybody respect everyone's opinions. As always, we start, middle, and end our show with the backpack. We'll get into that backpack, right? And so, like B said, this show I'm using it a little bit to help me with my platform to reach out to you guys, and you guys a chance to reach me, ask some questions, talk about me, talk about you, and just getting that community information and that dialogue going in the community. So right off the back, I'm gonna hit that backpack. right? That backpack consists of making sure that you got your driver's license before you get in that vehicle. Make sure you got your insurance with you as well. Make sure you keep it above the visor so it's easily accessible. Stay calm. Listen to the police officer. Let him go through his spiel. And as always, make it home to your loved ones. Same thing if you're walking down the street and you get stopped by law enforcement. Make sure you got your ID or driver's license where it's easily accessible. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Try and stay calm. Let the officer go through his spiel, and as always, make it home to your loved ones. You can reach me, of course, at banksforsheriff.com. That's BANKS, the number 4sheriff.com. Again, that's BANKS, the number 4sheriff.com. JoeLawman at hotmail.com. That's JoeLawman at hotmail.com. And 763-221-4724. Again, that's 763-221-4724. 4724. So that's how you get in touch with me, guys. We got a lot to go over today. I want to jump right into it. We're gonna let Beats kick it off, but we're gonna get this thing going today.
Well, before we jump into, I just really quick, can you kind of give the listening and viewing audience, and even before that, please chime in, join in, come down, be a part of the show. If you want us to come to you, we'll do that as well. But again, your participation is welcome. It's needed. It's wanted. The whole 9 yards. But before we kind of get into that real quick, can you kind of give the viewing and listening audience just a little bit of kind of what it is to kind of vote early and when the voting and stuff like that there is will be taking place, because I know that that's coming up. It's pretty much right around the corner.
Yeah, so you want to make sure you check with your local listings to make sure where you should be voting in your area. If you don't know where you should be voting, you can also contact the Hennepin County Election Committee. Early voting started June 24th, so it's already kicked off. So you can, if you want to put us in an absentee balance, you can get those going already. Make sure you contact the Hennepin County Election Committee to make sure that happens properly. And then the election itself is August 9th. Now, that's the primary election, and then the regular election is November the 8th. So you make sure when you get down to the polls that you're putting in your vote on August the 9th.
Now, I also recall being at an event here recently where another candidate, Ms. DeWanna Witt, who is currently with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, was stating that they was working with another entity to ensure that those that are qualified, that are currently incarcerated, would also be able to vote as well.
Yeah, and I think what Witt was talking about was they have a program within the Hennepin County jail that allows folks who are eligible to vote while in custody, awaiting charges, to still be able to vote. And so if you have loved ones who are still in custody and that process happens, there is a system set up to make sure that they still get a chance to have their voices heard.
Absolutely. And so we can only encourage, those that, if you are, in some type of holding facility of some sort, that you get with, the staff that be, if you will, to ensure, to see if you're qualified or not, to be able to vote. If you have someone locked up and you think that they're eligible to vote, and you know how important that is for them to do so, please contact someone within the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department and try to ensure that that is getting taken care of. It is extremely important, that we vote. I know a lot of folks feel and believe that, your vote's not going to count, that they're just going to do what they want to do, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I want to be the first one or a person to tell you that Hennepin County Sheriff, does not report to the mayor. They don't report to the city of Minneapolis chief, or the city council or anything like that there. They answer to you, the people. And so therefore, that is why it is important for you to be able to do your homework and select the person that you think, feel, and believe is going to represent you and your community in the way that you feel is going to be best served. Do not allow these opportunities to continue to just pass you by. and then you kind of sit there and wonder, why isn't this changing, or why is this happening, or whatever the case may be. Speak up, stand up, be a voice, empower yourself, educate yourself, and again, this is a platform for you to get to know Joseph Banks, and he to get to know you as he is running for Hennepin County Sheriff. But with that being said, this is primarily about you, the people. So, Joe, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, man. I mean, I saw a pretty disturbing video, that has went viral, that's definitely circulating nonetheless. And through kind of process of elimination, if you will, this video appears as if this has happened right here in our own backyard within the city of Minneapolis. There's so many different ways that we can kind of look at this, right? From the person who was videotaping this, I don't know who was videotaping it, but at no point, no one, had decided to stop, this young kid from saying and doing some of the things that he was saying and doing. I know I got a little chuckle behind it, but it's not funny.
Yeah, it's a little bit graphic from a kid standpoint. So just a little quick warning. It is a little bit graphic. The kid's saying some pretty provocative things to this officer.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was bad. It's kind of one of those things where you look and go, wow, if this is the opinion that the kids are starting off with, when they get to the point where they're 15 and 16, this is kind of why they're out of control.
Absolutely. And I know that we kind of spoke about this before as far as communication and transparency, and we're going to get into some of that stuff too, because some of that stuff is on your webpage, Banks for Sheriff, and on your platform. So we're going to dive into some of that. But I do want to kind of run that video, if we can kind of get that up on the screen, and just spend a few minutes, to just kind of discuss this encounter here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the young kid is just giving the officers the business. Not only is he using some assaultive behavior, but he's also giving them some verbal verbiage as well. And I mean, like I said, the key is, where is the parents? Kudos to the officer who was smart enough to kind of look at it and go, well, these are kids, and you'd like to hope that maybe he could have possibly taken it one step further to kind of explain, hey, this is not cool behavior. But it also would have put him in a situation where someone to stay there would have made the situation worse.
Absolutely.
So it was easier for him to kind of just walk it off and let the kid be. But where were the parents?
Well, and again, where was the parents, or just any other, perhaps, older sibling, or, whatever the case may be, that could have educated, this young child, on how to behave a little bit better than that. But again, there's so many different factors, that come into play, in regarding this. And I'm not, not excusing or making excuses for this child's behavior, because it's extremely alarming, no matter how we decide to try to chop this up, right?
Right.
But I guess my question is, in looking at your platform and some of these things that's on your platform here, right? And I'm just going to kind of go through a number of these things here. You're talking about lowering violent crime. You're talking about transparency. You're talking about, what did we just see? Community relations, right? We talking about, unified law enforcement, diversity, and also citizenship. So this one would fall, honestly, right up under community relations. And what are we going to do, you know what I'm saying, to build that community relations? And before you answer that, I believe that I read, earlier this week, or maybe it was over the weekend, that there was some type of new position to the mayor, like some type of community engagement person or something to that nature that was supposed to be helping, with transparency and community relations.
Minneapolis Public Safety Commissioner. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
Uniquely enough, though, it sounded like his salary was going to be twice that of the mayor's salary if they actually approved the hiring. And it sounds like they're in the process of doing that. I think his salary was going to be like $290,000. And he had a pretty decent resume. Don't get me wrong, and like he had been a few places. The question is, though, I mean, the thing of it is, we're constantly throwing money. I don't know where all this money is coming from. For one,
right.
This money is coming out of the taxpayers' pockets, and we're just kind of throwing money at instead of fixing problems. So I mean, the thing of it is in terms of community relations, when we look at this young kid and what's happening here, the first thing you got to look at it and say, okay, if this is what the officers are experiencing at this young age, how do we deprogram these kids who apparently appear to be learning disrespect and hatred for law enforcement, either through something that they've seen themselves or something that they've been taught. And so I would say that the goal right off the back is to get in the community and try to change that. Of course, you're going to have to do some PR work. You're going to have to spend some time with the community members, not necessarily as a police officer, but as a person first, so they get to know who you are. And so you get to know who they are. And we're going to have some more interaction so that these young kids don't grow up and be our next shooters. Right? We want these kids to have a healthy understanding that the police are there to protect them. We want to expose them to the squad cars, let them get a chance to play with the lights and sirens, just get a feel for encountering law enforcement that doesn't mean something negative. Right? And as you can see in that video, clearly those kids have seen or had some negative in contact with their family members that they witnessed or been taught. And it shows. It showed.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just a video that is extremely challenging to watch, and even though that you try to watch that multiple times and try to make sense, out of that, it's extremely hard for multiple reasons. But when you just spoke about that the city just kind of continues to toss out money, to various entities and individuals. And I think this is why, community members, business owners, just taxpayers, period, need to be more aware and more involved, so then therefore you can just be in the know of where this money is coming from and where it's going, and does it need to even go there? Because in my opinion, I think that in recent years, when I was on the police department, and I know it's been 7 years now, and there's been a few things that has happened since then, but we did pretty good, as far as community policing. Obviously there was always room for improvement, but we did that, without having some person in some high salary, like that there, where we were able to spend money like that on, hot dogs and chips and whatever else when we had various open houses and things.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, when you're talking about a commissioner of public safety in the community, that's a great thing. However, and it's nice that they've created this new position, but for some time, though, that position kind of fell to the mayor, who it was his job to support the police in a community safety effort. And then when you go get someone else from the outside and you pay them twice what the mayor is getting paid, it almost makes you feel, then why do we need the mayor? You know what I mean? If we're gonna pay this guy to kind of do your job, you know, where do you kind of sit in that? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, listen, my concern is always that when we bring somebody from the outside, we yet again have to spend X amount of dollars to get them up to speed to what's happening in our community, right? So before he's not just gonna hit the ground running. It'd be nice if he did, and he may possibly be able to actually have a plan similar in place, but to actually go outside the community yet again, and not take someone from the community, and then have the expectation that this guy is going to come in and just clean things up. I think we're just kind of spitting in the wind,
Absolutely.
right? And so that my thought is that, man, is that where we are now? Are we just kind of patching it along the way? We're not really fixing it. We're not even talking about fixing it. We're just deciding, yep, we're going to go get somebody, put them in here because that it looks like we're doing something. We have to take some real action. Minneapolis, the state of Minnesota, the Hennepin County, we have to come together as a community. We have to organize. We have to plan, strategize, and actually have a plan to follow through. When we leave some of these meetings, we should have a plan on how we're going to go about actually fixing something. We've been at this since the George Floyd murder, and we haven't fixed anything yet. Now, don't get me wrong. Sure, the police department and the mayor have put a few different policy changes in place to kind of aid situations that have arisen, right, with the no-knock warrants and things of that nature. But I'm looking at the fact that we're spending $400,000 on state troopers. We're spending X amount of dollars for the BCA to come in. You know, these are services that we should be already receiving. That's the part that concerns me the most, is that I thought the State Patrol was already supposed to be the State Patrol, right? We have to give them extra money to be the State Patrol in Minneapolis. I'm not getting that, right? I saw the blurb in the paper. We had almost 270 arrests or 270 stops made or something to that fact. And, you know, there was a large number of arrests made for DWIs and things of that nature. But we should have already had that presence, right? We should have already had that collaboration. And I don't know why it's costing us more money when we already have in place a mutual aid agreement, right? Why are we not using that mutual aid agreement so I get the same coverage, right? These guys are working the same hours they normally would. We're just shifting the manpower to where the problem is. And it's not costing more money. It shouldn't cost us $700,000 to have BCA and state troopers in the city of Minneapolis doing a job that we're supposed to already be doing.
Wow. So let me ask you this here. You know, we talk about this safety commissioner, safety person, or I don't know what the title is, but you know, we already have crime prevention specialists, you know, within each precinct. Now, from my understanding and my previous dealings, you know, with the crime prevention specialist, now I know that this person's job would be a little bit more detailed, right? And I get that. But the bottom line is that we are supposed to be, like you just said, working together to locate and find ways to, you know, prevent crime, build relationships, you know, between the community, you know, and police, or just, you know, community members and businesses and things of that nature. You know, why can't we find individuals or just kind of enhance, you know, these crime prevention specialists, individuals that's within these police stations and have them do the same or similar work?
That's a concern for me because, you know, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus at this point, but every week there's a new organization. There's the interrupters. There's the, you know, mediators. Next week it'll be the ticklers. You know, we're steady throwing money at it, right? My problem is that okay, where are the stats? What has changed since we had all this, right? What have we secured? Have the homicides gone down? Has the crime on block 4 and 5 gone down? What has changed to impact the community that justifies the expenditures of monies? I mean, just with the state troopers and the BCA, we're talking 700,000, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if we turn around and accept the new commissioner of public safety, for lack of a better term, at around $292,000. We're right at the cuff of $1 million again. Okay. And if I'm a taxpayer in Minneapolis, the county of Hennepin, I'm asking myself, where's this extra cash coming from?
Absolutely.
Right? Because I'm watching my taxes go up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, but the crime's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I'm paying all this money into my taxes and the reunification of my home to make my house look nice, and I look up and I need to call 911 and I'm on hold. Right.
Absolutely.
So these are the things I'm looking at. Like, are we really putting the money in the right places? Are we really thinking this thing through? Are we involving the community in these conversations?
So with that being said, and I think this is just some of the reasons why, many individuals in the community, taxpayers, et cetera, think, feel, and believe that their voices don't matter. Their voices don't count. So why should they vote? Because these people are going to just spend the money, regardless of what we think, feel, and believe. They're just going to do what they want to do. And then we will continue to sit here and be victimized again and again and again.
You have to get out and vote because your vote makes a difference. And the thing of it is if you want to see change, we have to understand that the power comes from the people. And in order to get that change, the people must have a voice. Right now, that voice in Hennepin County, in terms of the sheriff department, that voice would be me. Because I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm going to make sure I inform people exactly on what's happening and how they can make things better. And that's important. Education is key. People need to be informed of what needs to change, how we can change it, and where we can go to get that change brought about in our county. This is what we have to do. We have to come. Listen, it's unique that we're saying, and I say it again and again and again, it's unique that we're saying that we need more cops in Minneapolis, right? There's 400 and some odd thousand people in Minneapolis. We say we need at least 800 cops, right? And we're short. We have a county of 1.2 to 1.3 million people and 270 patrol deputies. Now people are looking and go, well, how are we going to change that? The first thing of it is we've been so asleep at the wheel that we've allowed ourselves to have a county of 1.3 million people with only 270 patrol deputies, to include the sheriff. I mean, how are we going to cover that, right? We got to hire some bodies. And the question is, have we met with the commissioners? Have we talked about what does that funding look like, right? I took a peek at the budget. The average deputy with no experience makes about $61,000 a year, so we have the ability to be able to bring bodies on, but we don't have the time to wait for them to go through a 2-year degree. Right. And that's why my plan talks about how we can pull people from the community, those who have prior law enforcement experience, those who have education in law enforcement, and then that next wave of just basic citizens who care about the county, who care about the community, who want to come in, get hired, get trained to be police officers. We're going to put them through continued education and keep them up to speed, but we're going to be able to keep the county safe.
Okay. Well, again, and most people would be like, you know what, Mr. Banks, man, that sounds wonderful. Oh, that if your words alone could get the job done, I'd be on board with you tomorrow.
Exactly.
But again, there's always those that have a lot of skepticism, right? But before we kind of get into that, we have a question that kind of popped up, and we want to make sure that we kind of get to our listening audience and viewing audience here. It says, being put on hold on a 911 call should never happen. Your thoughts and opinions on that?
You know, that was the whole point of creating 911, right? I mean, if it wasn't 911, we would be dialing regular numbers, right? The whole point of dialing 911 is because, it's an immediate response at the phone.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, again, it's an issue of us not collaborating together. I mean, not only are we having people being placed on hold, but we've had several instances where the communication system completely crashed. Right. And we should have been throwing money at that to make sure that it's high tech, that it's up to speed, that it's not shutting down, that we can make sure we're responding to people's needs. Right. And that's just not acceptable. And so that's why that's got to change. In fact, that $1 million that we spent on the state patrol and BCA, we could have invested into the dispatch center to hire some dispatchers, to get some more equipment that we need. We have to get our numbers up. And we could be actually lobbying the community with PR to get some people into dispatch. We're short dispatchers.
A lot of them.
Yes, we're very short.
A lot of them, and they have a ton of mandatory overtime and things of that nature, and that's why they have such a high turnover. But just like it takes a lot of individuals that's applying for police officers a couple of years to kind of get through their program. From my understanding, it's just as long and just as tedious, for you to become a 911 dispatcher as well.
Yeah, there's a training program. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to multitask. You got to be able to type and talk at the same time. But, you can get trained. You can get hired and get trained to be a dispatcher. So you don't need experience to be a dispatcher. What you need to have is the desire to want to be a dispatcher, and the folks will get you up to speed to where you need to be. But we need folks to start applying for those positions. We need departments and agencies to start advertising those positions that are available within their agencies.
So why is it taking 6 months or so? If you don't really need all this education and this experience and this training, because they do it on the job and so on and so forth, why is it taking 6 months or so for individuals to get through the process just to get hired as a dispatcher?
That's the red tape. That is the red tape. I don't know why the red tape is there. I really don't. You go into a job interview, you should be able to talk to some folks. They do a quick background check on you, make sure you're good to go, start your training on the position that you're going to be training. I like the concept of hands-on because you're getting a chance to get some real-life experience while learning the concepts you're being taught. And it shouldn't take that long. I mean, it's kind of right up there where why do we have two separate police academies for guys who are coming into larger cities, right? Minneapolis, St. Paul has a separate academy. Right, from the one that you actually go through in skills, which is supposed to put you at state standardized training, and then we're allowed to take you from that training and stick you in any department in the state and send you to work. However, the larger cities, they spend 13 weeks in the academy to kind of get you up to speed as to how they do things in their city. I don't know if it takes 13 weeks. You've been through that academy to actually learn what it takes to do in Minneapolis. I mean, you've already been through the skills training. Does it take 13 weeks to get the process of Minneapolis and the city ordinances down?
No.
Oh, okay. So we know at that point that we're kind of wasting dollars. And the sad part is this. Listen, we got guys that have gone through skills training and have met the state standards. They get to these separate police academies, and now they got some kind of catastrophic injury while in the training. They're done. Right? These guys got years invested in this job, and in a lot of cases, they've been offered a position pending them finishing the academy, so they've quit their other jobs. They're receiving a stipend from the city, and now they're injured, and they can't go to work, right? And so at some point, they're released, and so
But they're still getting paid.
But they're still getting paid.
Absolutely.
And so it's sad, but it's what's happening. And, unfortunately, in the past, what a lot of people don't know when it comes to people of color, because I can't say a lot of other folks, but what I've experienced for some officers of color is that the cities were not necessarily looking to hire as much as they were looking to screen out African-American clients or potential officers, right? They were asking questions about situations that were completely unnecessary. and then after going through the process, finding out that they went on and hired somebody with a similar situation who happened to be of fair-skinned descent, right? So to scratch this guy because he was African American and had a disorderly conduct in his background, but you took this guy who had the disorderly and the DWI and still hired him. But you submit this guy the letter that says we went with somebody whose training and education was more closely related to the department's needs. So my question was, what happened there when we all went to the same training, right? How am I less qualified than this guy, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what's been happening. And unfortunately, because it is law enforcement, not a lot of our people have looked into the fact that there has been an elimination process for young men and women of color, and as a result, they've become tired and trying to get hired and decided to go elsewhere in careers. Right? I've met guys who wanted to be police officers who end up being cooks or something else because they had spent so much and they were in a position where they had to feed their families or they had to pay rent, and they could no longer continue to hope and wait for the possibility of a job. And let's be clear that most job hiring processes for police officers are about 3 interviews sessions, right? You get the first interview, then if they like your attitude and you make that through that group of officers and you come back, then there's a couple more officers for you to talk to, and there's a background screening, and if everything goes right in the background and they appreciate your attitude, then you're hired, right? Because you got to pass the attitude test. If they don't think you got the right attitude, they're like, we're gonna scratch him, and they don't have to tell you why, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what's unique about it. I ain't throwing nobody on the bus, but I can remember some years back of asking a few background investigators, like, what could I have done more to get that 1 point that you said I didn't get? And the guy got a feeling like, we don't have to tell you why. And I would say something like, well, I was hoping to just maybe do better in the next interview if you could tell me where I came up short. And the guy's like, no, we don't have to tell you that. We decided to go in a different direction, and that's all you need to know. And it's like,
absolutely.
right? Because you put on your nice suit and you show up there and you wait patiently, and there's 15 guys in the lobby for one position.
Yeah, right.
So
and then you miss it by 1 point. That leaves a very sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, man, at 1 point, man, what could I have done to get that 1 point, right? Yeah. And it sounds like not much, but when you got 3 years invested at that point trying to get hired, right? You've invested all this money, time. You passed the exam that was several hours to do, right? And now you just need to get a job, and the guys are like, that 1 point,
and I think unfortunately there's a lot of stories that will mimic that, and even worse in some cases.
Yeah.
But I'm not even going to get on that train and go down that dang path because
Well, I really want people to understand because this is what I hear all the time in the community. We need more black officers in the community. And I don't think people really understand in Minnesota what officers of color actually go through during the hiring process. Unfortunately, the murder of George Floyd has shined a spotlight on policing in the country as well as Minnesota, and we've had a lot of people walk out, and there are a lot of jobs available. But police officers of color in Minnesota have caught hell trying to get hired. And here's what's been unique in my experience. Some of those officers were lucky enough to get into cities like St. Paul, Minneapolis, because that's where a good chunk of people of color were. But applying in these suburban communities that in some cases were predominantly Caucasian, where the black officer was going to stand out, it was almost a test of termination to the chief of police to even consider hiring you, right? Because he had to first make that decision and see if it was going to be approved or accepted by both the city council and the community. And I have personally said in some interviews where the interviewees didn't ask the questions or didn't read the questions before they asked them, and you knew it because they would look at you and go, have you ever dealt with someone of color, right? And you're going, are you serious? Is that the question you want to ask me? Right? And the thing of it is that, yeah, because they never thought about it. And they would ask you a question like, do you have any questions for us? And my question would always be, well, do you have any African Americans currently within your department? Right? And they go, currently no. Right? You know what I mean? And the look on their face is kind of like, wow, did he really ask that? Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so yeah, it is something to consider, because I do want us to replace officers needed in Minneapolis. I do want our county to reflect people in our community. I want everybody who's able-bodied to want to apply, but I want them to come into a fair hiring process. Right? I want people to have a fair hiring process. I want people to be a part of the community. I want people from the community to be a part of the county while working in law enforcement. So we have to do this together, but in order to do that, we have to highlight what's wrong and explain how we can go forward in fixing it.
Absolutely. And I stated this before, and I'll state it again because we're kind of getting to that halfway mark, is I think that as an applicant, a minority or other, needs people from the community, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a business owner, a property owner, whatever the case may be, they need to be a part of these recruits hiring processes throughout, whether that's through the background phase, through the PT phase, the application phase, and then they need to be able to be a part of this recruits 1-year probationary period. Because sometimes, and I've seen it to where, you don't make it through that probationary period, like you said before, based on your attitude. Been there. But, and so then therefore, you as a recruit, you're scared, to really say something, because you know that these guys kind of hold your fate in their hands. So someone like a Miss Lucille from the community that's sat on the hiring panel or something like that, there needs to be kind of your mentor or whatever, if you will, for you to be able to go to her, bounce some stuff off of her, so then therefore she can take it back to the hiring committee or whomever she would take it to and say, hey, these are just some of the concerns that we're hearing, what can we do, to improve this type of stuff. So then therefore, you don't make it to month 11, and then all of a sudden they telling you, well,
we're letting you go.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what? You got to have the community buy-in, man. I think the community, it's what people don't realize is that it's supposedly everything that cops do, supposedly for the most part, outside of pending pertinent investigations, is supposed to be public knowledge. Right? And so why can't the public be involved? Why can't they have a say into what's happening in terms of hiring and firing officers? Right? And, that's why my plan, not only will we be collecting data in real time at those police departments, but then we're going to make that data, accessible to the community so they can see what officers are doing in their community. And we're going to be able to prevent ahead of time those officers from leaving one agency, being a bad apple there, and getting hired elsewhere, right? So we're going to be reporting in 3 places: one to the post board, one to the sheriff department, and the third one to the community. And so we're providing a platform for people to see or to go to and be able to file formal complaints and say, hey, this officer in my community, he's had so many write-ups, he did A, B, and C, we got all these complaints, and the sheriff department in that community should be able to address that issue with the local police chief.
Absolutely. Well, ma'am, before we kind of get into our next segment, or the second half of this segment, I guess I should say, is we're at the halfway point.
Time for that.
Yes.
Backpack.
But again, that backpack, some housekeeping things and so on and so forth. So, and then again, we're going to jump right into the second half because there's a few things that we need to kind of get out there in such a short period of time. Go right on ahead. The floor is yours,
All
brother.
right, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and start off with that backpack on the second half. As you know, we start middle and end with that backpack. So again, make sure you got your driver's license and insurance with you before you enter that vehicle. Make sure you place it above the visor so it's easily accessible. That way, if you're stopped by law enforcement, it won't be mistaken for a weapon. Remember to stay calm, let the officer go through his spiel, and as always, make it home to your loved ones. Same thing if you're walking down the street. Make sure that you have your ID, your driver's license easily accessible. Remember to stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. Know, as always, we can deal with any issues at a later date and time through a complaint process. And as always, guys, always make it home to your loved ones.
Absolutely. So really quick, man, I'm just going to jump right on into it. We're talking about how, we need, more people of color and so on and so forth, which is, I don't think anyone's really arguing that. I think, though, that people will say is that, in addition to those of color, we need, those are willing to, come in, and basically do the right thing, by the people, those that work, live, and visit, within the county. Now, with that being said, and all of this, hatred or disliking, of law enforcement, the miscommunication, the mistrust, the non-transparency, and we're going to kind of jump into some of that. But, here just recently, we had the current, Hennepin County Sheriff who's on medical leave or whatever his leave is right now. There was some information that came out, as far as emails, that was shared between him and some of his command staff and some other things that have kind of come up, and we'll kind of put some of that stuff up on the board here, on the screen here shortly. But what would you say when, people of color, if you will, are seeing, comments such as, and this was a quote that kind of came off of the sheriff's cell phone and a text message saying that people are sick of black people getting things solely on being black. There is another comment as far as it's racial slurs that was out there and other different things of making the work environment extremely hostile, and so on and so forth. What would you say, to these individuals that might be interested, in becoming, a sheriff or just getting in law enforcement in general? But this stuff is extremely damaging, to a lot of folks. I mean, you don't have to be a person of color for this to impact you on whether you want to get involved or not.
You are exactly right. And see, this is why when you look at situations like this is why I always come back to Martin Luther King Jr., right? Because King didn't just unite people based on their color. Martin Luther King united people based on their morality. That means that we all can look at something wrong and see that it's wrong. The blinders are off, right? We're not just looking at the fact that Beeks is an African American man. We're looking at the fact that Beeks saw it wrong, Pastor Brown saw it wrong, and everybody else around looked at it and they could clearly see that it was wrong. We all agreed that it needed to be changed. And that's where we are with things right now. Currently now, we are in the most free, opinionated society right now that we could have, right? And this is why it's important that now as a community of people in general, we have to come together through nonpartisan collaboration and fix this, right? We have to change this. We can't have this type of behavior, and it cannot be acceptable anywhere, right? I think it was King that said injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And so we have to make sure that the message is out from the citizens to the police department that we are not going to accept this terrible behavior anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at your platform here, and some of the items, I guess, if you will, that you kind of talk about that you want to improve on, and again, I'm going to kind of give you about 2 minutes to kind of run through these, and I'm gonna fire them at you because I'm gonna see just how quick you are on your feet.
Oh man, my feet are slow.
So again, we talk about lowering violent crime. Give it to me.
So when we talk about law and violent crime, we're talking about getting the community involved. We're talking about more officers' presence in the streets. We're talking about strategizing, looking at high crime environments, utilizing, the mutual aid agreements and things of that nature to move the force around and get the protection that the people need. Definitely you got to involve the community to lower the violent crime. They know where it's at. They need our assistance to to enforce it, but definitely want to be out there with more officers, more deputies in the community, more police present.
Okay, and transparency.
The transparency piece is simple. The sheriff department, I'm actually connecting a deputy to each one of the 36 police departments, and in some cases 2 deputies for the larger departments, to make sure that I'm getting real-time information about what the police are doing. Not only are we going to be out there talking to the police chiefs about what they're doing, but we're also going to be talking to the community members in that community to make sure we're getting both sides of the coin, if you would, for what's happening for those police departments. And then we're going to conduct our own investigations to make sure that the police are being held to a higher standard that they're supposed to be.
Absolutely. Community relations.
Yeah, that's a big piece. There are a lot of grassroots organizations already out there doing the work. Our goal is to mediate and get with those groups to try to find out what their needs are to make things better. A lot of them are already doing great jobs, but we want to connect them with the proper financing, networking, to ensure that they're growing. And we want to make sure, my goal is to try to put some of those groups in one location so that all of those resources are accessible equally. In the past, what's happened is that you've had groups kind of splintered, offered money in different directions, and they spent a lot of time fighting amongst themselves about that. And I want to bring those groups together, get them some funding equally so that people know where they can get the help that they need to get. And then we want to work with those groups to go out into the community and strengthen what they're already putting in place.
Okay. Unifying law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So right now, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. We want to get, cops all on the same page. We're supposed to have a standard way of doing things, right? Standardized in the state. According to the training, education, I'm supposed to be able to take one cop here and put him in your department. Outside of him learning your department policies and the city ordinances, he should be ready to go. We're kind of doing our own thing, and we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We want to make sure we're talking about crime that's rolling over into your community, like the north side into Robbinsdale into Brooklyn Park, things of this nature. We want to be able to share that information with each other, collaborate together, unify the departments so that they understand, even though your uniform says Brooklyn Park, okay, you could be asked to patrol in Minneapolis if need so. And as long as you're within your department hours, it's not costing any more money to your department, right? But we're utilizing that manpower to shift.
Okay. And diversity. That's Pete. That's a good piece.
Yes, that diversity, like I said, we need a lot more cops of color. We need cops, women cops. Right, we need a lot more women cops. We don't have enough women cops. It'd be great to have some more women cops. It'd be nice to get a representative from all of the cultures, not just African American, but all of the cultures in Minneapolis area, Hennepin County area. Hennepin County is a multicultural county, and so we want the county and its law enforcement to be reflected in the community. Right, and so that's what we're striving for, is to get diversity within the community, and in promotions and things of that nature.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, and this is huge. I believe in many ways, citizenship. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Well, in the past, there's been issues whether or not, people are getting arrested if they're having to go through, having to talk to ICE and things of that nature, right? It's important that people understand what their rights are when it comes to ICE. And I think when people come through the jails themselves, we need to be dealing with the issue at hand, right? It's not our job to actually go out and contact ICE and say, hey, we have somebody here of a different descent or wasn't born here. And I think currently that's what we're doing in the county right now anyways, is that we're having folks, not have to talk to ICE, or at least being made aware that they don't have to talk to ICE unless there's a warrant from ICE requesting that they be held. Right. If there's a federal warrant, of course, we're going to work with them and we're going to honor that federal warrant. But if there's not a warrant, we're not going to force people to call ICE to verify that they're U.S. citizens. All right. And that's something that's been going on for a while now.
And just with that being said, I have to jump in on this one here. Is that I know within law enforcement agencies, if you're not directly on their team, even though that we're supposed to be one team, those can get a little pissy, if you will, thinking and believing that, you're not working with them or you're not cooperating with them because, you're not providing them the information that they are requesting, even though that it is not bound by law for you to provide them that information at that particular time, meaning that there is no warrant or anything like that there.
Right. I mean, in the past, what's happened is that, so generally as a person has a misdemeanor crime and they were going to get basically booked and released out of the jail, and the family was expecting that person to go home within the day. Right now, Hennepin has a 4 to 6 hour release process to begin with. So for the family to sit there thinking my loved one is coming home in a couple hours, and at the end of the day, right before they walk out their door, we've already had them contact ICE. And now when they're about to get released, ICE decides, you know what, we want to run our own background on them. We're going to come pick them up. That's not fair to the families, right? And it's not really required because here's the thing. The county is going to run you to make sure you don't have any outstanding warrants and criminal background currently active at that point on the way in. And they're going to run you one more time before you go out. So there's no need to put the guy unnecessarily, or woman, through being arrested and processed through ICE as well.
Absolutely. Well, a couple things here real quick. What do you think, feel, and believe in regards to police unions, being part of the police department? Or do you think that these unions should be a separate entity, and why?
Mixed feelings about that one. And unions do great work when they work properly, okay? But let's not forget that the unions are also being paid a contract, right? And that funding is unique. In looking at the sheriff's, just a small peek at it, what I didn't like, what I saw in there was language like the funding that's going to be deducted for the dues, for the union dues, basically was kind of left unsaid exactly what that amount was. So the department will deduct the necessary amount of funds to meet what the union dues are. Okay. The dues could go up every week at that point if that language is going to stay that vague, right? So that's important. But at the same time, I think you have to understand what your role is as that chief law enforcement officer, right? If the union is fighting you on releasing someone and you have a legitimate grounds to believe that person poses safety risk to the community, I think you have to clarify your intentions to keep the community safe, because the community must always be at the forefront, right? So I think you would have to, mediate with the union and just say, hey, in terms of this person not coming back to work in the role of a deputy or a police officer, that until we can figure out exactly where he stands, he'll be sitting at a desk. He'll be sitting at a desk, because I cannot have him out there putting the community at risk and putting someone's life at risk, knowing that this person cannot be trusted to be out there in the community.
So I guess my question is do you think that these police unions should be part of the police department, or do you think that it should be an outside entity?
Well, I don't think it should be a part of the police department, okay? Because what you're getting are friendships going on there, and people they're blurring the lines. So you need somebody that's actually able to be separate from the department, that can have clear eyes on things, and we don't want people doing quid pro quo situation.
Absolutely.
You know,
So, one last thing here. What do you think about night court?
Ooh, night court would save a lot of headache. I think night court would be great if we had it, because in some situations where defendants could be seen and released, it would definitely free up space in the jail. You know, so yeah, definitely night court would be a good thing to have.
And I know that there's a lot of counties kind of throughout the country, that are having night court. I mean, what do you think that's preventing Hennepin County from having night court right now? And if you was to get into Hennepin County as sheriff, would that be something that you would attempt to introduce, or?
Well, I think it would be something worth talking about. Now, Minnesota itself has what we call, it's not night court, but they have what we call judicial review. Right? That means your paperwork goes in front of a judge, not you. Right? So usually the on-call county attorney gets a chance to take a peek at what the complaint is and makes a decision, and then refers that back to the jail. Your paperwork goes into a judicial review, so they decide if they want to set a bail, release you, or hold you. But it would be nice to have an actual court up and going, so that some of these cases that haven't been seen or pushed back further on the calendar could come forward and be seen. Some of those in custody cases would be perfect for that.
Absolutely. Well, I know that we have just a little bit of time left here, but I wanted to, again, just take a few moments and to regress. I think that we have gotten away from some of the things that still, has occurred in our own backyard, that I want to continue to give the necessary attention to, and we have definitely lost a lot of loved ones, both, child and adult, in some very unfortunate circumstances. But again, when we get to talking about our elders and we get to talking about our babies, that have been harmed or killed, and these individuals are still out here roaming, our streets, and even maybe not even our city streets, but they're roaming somebody's streets throughout the country, that can put somebody else's child and or elderly parent or grandparent in harm's way. We want to, again, take a moment, to express our condolences, to those friends and families who have lost loved ones. At the same time, we want to encourage, those that know something to stand up and say something. There's a huge difference between being a snitch and a concerned community member. And a snitch is someone that has gotten caught on something. Now you all of a sudden you want to tell, something or another to try to save your own bacon. A concerned community member is someone who does not want that type of stuff in their community, period. All right. So again, stand up and say something. We know as we are sitting here in this controlled environment, it's a lot easier said than done. We get that. Right. But when you don't say anything, then, it just gets bigger and it just grows and it grows. And the next thing you know, we're pointing fingers at individuals on who, why, where, when, and how. And it just does not help anyone.
And it's important too. I mean, there are things that we want to identify right away, which are, we do want the gun violence to go down. We want people to start laying those guns down and learn to have disagreements that don't involve gun violence. Right. So, I mean, that doesn't do anything with gun laws. That has to do with people in general. Show enough respect for each other's lives to not want to grab a gun to settle an argument. Right. Let's talk our way through it. Let's slow things down a little bit. Prime example, the situation in Apple Valley that just happened this past week with the mom who was shot and killed possibly by either her ex-boyfriend or her son. The ballistics haven't come out yet, but the young man returned home to get some items in the breakup from the home, and it sounds like the son may have shot him in the face. They got into a gun battle right in the driveway with mom caught in the middle. Mom's dead and gone from 10 bullets hitting her body, and we're trying to determine who actually it has fired the fatal shot. But the bottom line of it is that could have been handled completely different without gun violence. It's okay to disagree. So, I want people to think about that. Let's find ways to disagree. I don't want people to forget about the fact that we're still in a pandemic with COVID-19 that still exists in our community. I don't want people to forget that we are experiencing an opiate addiction issue. We still have people dying from overdoses, and most importantly, we have people dying from depression and suicide. And these things aren't getting talked about. They don't get as much attention, but we need to also remember that these people count too in our community. This is a hard time for us all. Make sure that you're checking on your family members. And most importantly, our youth, who right now seem to be both victim and victimizer in our community, we really need to take some time and figure out how we can come to the aid of these children who are making these decisions that are winding them up either in the grave or in the jail. And I just right now, would like to call all the family members, parents as well, and say, listen, let's figure out what our kids are into, figure out how can we help them, how can we get these guns out of their hands, and how can we make this community safer together, because right now we are in peril.
Absolutely. Well, I still want to take just a second here to, give you my condolences, to you and your family. I know that for those who knows Mr. Banks, and for those who don't know, he lost a sister within the last couple of days here. And so he, has to leave here and jump on the road and make a long drive, to deal with the loss of a family member, and still be able to do what he's doing, for you, the people, as he is seeking candidacy, for Hennepin County Sheriff. Again, this is not an easy task. This is not something that he is taking lightly. I said this before, and I'll say it again. If I did not believe, in Joe and his transparency and his commitment and his dedication, et cetera, seeking this position, I would not be sitting to this man's right, speaking, so highly of him. Trust you me, we would be having a whole totally different conversation, but again, chime in, come down, be a part. Again, your voice matters. Your vote will count. This is an opportunity for you to get to know Joe and for Joe to get to know you. If you want us to kind of bring the show, to you, give us a call. We will provide you with information here in just a second for you to get a hold to us. We will be more than happy to do that as well. But before we kind of pass out that information, I do want to end with, we have had some spectacular shows, some fabulous individuals that have kind of come through. But next week, people, please take some time to stop in, join in, chime in, whatever the case may be, because we will have a dynamic individual that will be in the building next week, and that is the aunt of George Floyd, who will be sharing a lot of information. We will be having discussions about a lot of different things, next week. So we encourage you, to chime in. We know that's going to be kind of a hot, show, and we apologize early, if we are unable to get to your question live, but we will then kind of go back and then answer your question later as we are done with the show or whatever the case may be. So again, chime in. We want to thank all of our listening and viewing audience, for everything that you have done up to this point, for us and actually for yourself as well. Thank you for that message. Joe, we are going to go ahead and kind of end the show. My name is Antoine Beeks. I am the co-host of Let's Talk About It. This has been another fabulous Wednesday, sunny outside. Again, I have a security company, WSC Protective Agency. If you are looking for a job, please give me a call. If you are looking to have security services, please give me a call. All right. And you can reach us at 612-978-6066. Again, 612-978-6066. You can also reach me at abeeks@westport.com. Again, any other questions, feel free to give me a call at my personal number, 612-702-9849. Again, 612-702-9849. In addition to, being a owner of a security company, I am also a firearms instructor. So if you are looking for any type of gun classes, permit to carry, recertification, or just overall knowledge, please give me a call and reach out to me. I am also a Narcan instructor. So if you are looking to have your organization, your company, your employees be trained in Narcan, give me a call. We can definitely do that as well. Again, I do a lot of different things in the community, and along, on side of Joe, but also independently. So, Joe, I'm going to go ahead and let you kind of close this out, brother.
All right. It's been a great show as usual. My chance to get a chance to talk with you guys and enjoy you guys is great as always. Jackson, I saw you, brother. Appreciate the condolences. Kendra, baby girl, I saw you. Appreciate the condolences. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us today. We got a lot of information out. There's always more information for you guys to get. Listen, we're a grassroots campaign. I need your support. I need your vote. I need your money. I need your donations. I need your time. That election's coming up pretty quick here, August the 9th. I need you to go to those polls. I need you to be voting Joe Banks for Hennepin County Sheriff. The time is now. You say you want the change, and I'm that change. I'm your voice. So make sure that we together make tomorrow better for everybody, right? That's our goal, is to make your tomorrow better. And so you can do that by going to the poll August 9th and voting Joe Banks for Hennepin County Sheriff. If you got questions, you can reach me at banksforsheriff.com. That's BANKS, the number 4, sheriff.com. You can also call me at 763-221-4724, 763-221-4724, or you can email me at joelawman@hotmail.com. That's JOELAWMAN@hotmail.com. Make sure you get involved, be a part of this campaign. We are going to make history together. We're going to save Hennepin County. We're going to put things back on track and get everybody back where they need to be, safe and secure. Having said that, as you know, we start, middle, and end every show with that beautiful backpack.
Beautiful backpack.
Right. Now, that backpack consists of making sure you got your driver's license and insurance with you before you get in that car. Make sure you place it above the visor. Make sure it's good when you can get to it. Right? And make sure that you stay calm, listen to the officer, let him go through his spiel, and as always, getting home to your loved ones. Same thing when you're walking down the street. Make sure you got your ID or driver's license where it's easy accessible. Make sure that you stay calm. Keep your hands where they can be seen. Allow the officer to go through his spiel. And as always, make it home to your loved ones. One last shout out to my family. Yes, guys, and we lost my oldest sister, Brenda, Kenny, Sharina, Tammy, Lee Michael. Guys, I'm praying for you. I'll be out to see you guys. We'll get things together. But if you guys take some time, pray for the family. And we're going to get through this together. Love my sister. That's my oldest sister, and I'm the youngest. So, that's my oldest sister. She's my big one. Okay? So love you, sis. And we'll be praying for you on your journey into heaven. With that being said, guys, we just had a great show today.
Yes.
I'm Joe Banks.
And I'm Antoine Beeks.
And we just talked about it.
Peace.